Welcome to the Brain Over Binge podcast, where you learn a simple, brain-based approach to ending binge eating. Thank you for being here today. I'm Kathryn Hansen, and it's my mission to guide you toward recovery in the most efficient way possible, so that you can move on with your life. Today's topic is going to help you toward that goal because it will help you see that you don't need to fix every part of your life, or every part of your day, or every part of your eating. It's about zeroing in on those times when you're tipping into the problematic behaviors, and it's about making some adjustments and harnessing your own power of choice so that you can avoid going down those familiar but harmful pathways. Coach Julie is here to talk about this with me, and we hope that this episode will help you make positive changes in those pivotal moments of recovery. Before we get started, I want to make sure you know how to get the free Brain Over Binge Inspiration Booklet, which is a powerful resource to use along with this podcast. Here on the podcast, you're learning information and insights to guide you, and the inspiration booklet helps with keeping you motivated on a daily basis, and it also provides quick reminders of some of the main Brain Over Binge concepts. You can get the inspiration booklet through the link in the show description or on the homepage of brainoverbinge.com. Hi, Julie. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Kathryn. So good to be with you.
Yeah, we're going to be talking about inflection points today. And this is a really powerful concept that you taught a lesson about in the group. And we thought it'd be great to bring it to the podcast listeners as well.
Yeah. It's this idea that I came up with just to ground people in this concept that, we have these inflection points in life, this moment of decision where we can change direction and create a new outcome. Right. And with binge eating, with healing from binge eating, with recovery, there are infinite inflection points. And it's really great to become aware of them because there's so much opportunity for growth and healing when we when we are aware of what they are and we notice them.
Yeah, for sure. I actually printed out a definition of inflection point in case you're not familiar with the concept. It's a moment when significant change occurs or may occur. So, yeah, I love how you describe it. Like there are these moments that we have a choice to make, and one choice leads us, when we're talking about binge eating, back down the path of reinforcing those pathways that keep us stuck in the habit. And the other choice involves deconditioning those pathways and really
Right.
moving us toward the change that we want.
Yeah, right. I mean, there are so many inflection points in life, right? But like with the world of binge eating, those are those paths, right? And it's like these critical moments and they come to shape our behaviors, right? And it's this opportunity to pause and make an intentional choice. Like imagine yourself at a crossroads, right? Like I can go this way or I can go this way. Health or harm, allowing an urge or binging. One of the reasons that I came up with this idea is because a lot of people that we work with talk about falling into binging. I don't know what came over me. I just found myself binging. I fell into the habit, or the next thing I knew, I was binging. And so I felt like it was a great reminder that we actually don't fall into binging. There are all of these inflection points along the way. We have an urge, and then there are a lot of things that happen before we're actually binging. And each one of those things is an inflection point, right? Because it's like you have the urge, and then there's procuring the food, finding a place to eat the food, opening the packages, putting the food in your mouth, taking more food, like all of those steps along the way. Or it could be that you're eating with other people and then you want to keep going, but you don't do it with them. And then later you get more food, whatever it is. All of those points along the way are those inflection points where you could stop and make a different choice.
I think thinking about this idea of inflection points really helps us develop awareness of what's going on. Because, like you said, it's, oh, I just fell into binging. I found myself doing this. But when you really break it down and, okay, what thought did I have? What action did I perform? Where are all these places where I could have gone down a different path? And it's not to shame yourself for not
Oh,
going
no.
down that different path. It's just to learn to identify it and then start to empower yourself to make different choices in those moments.
Absolutely. This is never, ever about shaming yourself. Not at all. In fact, somebody today in the group wrote in the learning moments section about inflection points because in the group, this was a lesson that I did. And this member mentioned how wow, I'm seeing this is a moment of growth for me. I'm seeing after having a learning moment, after eating too much or maybe binging, oh, I see all of those inflection points where I could have made a different choice. And now I see how I could have done it differently. It's that Monday morning quarterback. I think that's what it's called. I mean, I'm not a sports person, right? Isn't it right? They look back at the
Yeah.
videotape. Let's see where, and I always say with learning moments, like what went well, what didn't go well, what could I do differently? That's the goal, seeing those inflection points. And then you can actually use the power of visualization to visualize yourself making a different choice at any of those points so that next time you do that.
Yeah, and I love the sports example and good for you for using that because I know you don't watch sports and I'm definitely a big sports fan and that's what they do after the game or even during the game. You'll see the players watching the tape and seeing, okay, what happened here and what could I have done differently? What am I going to do differently next time? So, yeah, definitely use that visual to help yourself see how you can make the changes you want to make.
Yeah, yeah, with kind of with excitement because it's like, oh, good, this is an opportunity to do things differently. As opposed to, I can't believe I did that again. I'm always just falling into binging. There's no hope for me. All the beating or no, it's like, okay, let me roll the tape back. Let me see where could I have made different choices? And then next time I can do it that way.
Yeah, and that's such a mentality, keeping on the sports example, that if someone makes a mistake and they just, oh, and they get in their head about it and it affects the rest of the game. Whereas if they make a mistake and learn from it and correct it, like that's the key to it is not letting a
Totally.
mistake get you down. So I really love that.
Yeah, yeah.
The thing I love too about this inflection point thing is because it helps you see that not everything is wrong in your day or in what you're doing in recovery. I talk to a
Mhm.
lot of people and they're like, my eating's a mess. It's, chaotic everywhere. I'm binging all the time. I'm having urges all the time. But when we really break it down, we see that it's really a few crucial moments. It's not everything. You're doing much
Mm,
more right than you think you are. So when you break it down to, okay, what are the points that I'm actually going down that path I don't want to go down? It helps you focus on the good you're doing and reinforce that and also make those tweaks.
I love that. I love that. Absolutely. Yeah, because again, it's just these discrete moments. It goes from being this like unwieldy, like unmanageable, there's no hope for me situation to, oh, okay, it's just these discrete moments. And how can I do things differently? Where do I have room to make a different choice? Like some examples that I was thinking of is like you're returning home from a trip and there's no food at home, right? I mean, that's actually, I think, what inspired this lesson is like, that's an inflection point because it's not, there's no food in my house, so I better binge. Like
Yeah.
that, like after the fact, you can look logically at that situation and be like, yeah, that doesn't make any sense. But in the moment when you're just falling into binging, it doesn't seem that way. So then you go back and you go, okay, between no food in my house after a trip and binging, there are a million inflection points in the middle. I can
Yeah.
get takeout. I can have Instacart deliver groceries to my house. I can have some things in the freezer on hand the next time I go on vacation so that it's ready made when I get home. There are a million inflection points there between returning home with no food in the house and binging. Another one is like I'm in a restaurant and I eat something off plan, so then I binged. Right. And it's like, okay, so where are the inflection points here? Like, all of these situations, I'm having stress with work, I'm having stress with my child. So I binged because I needed relief. Right. And it's like looking at these situations. And I think anybody listening can think about situations, these like few key moments where you've been turning to binging and like, what could you turn to instead?
Yeah, and it's seeing that those inflection points or what is happening to you isn't the cause of binging. Like if we
Mm,
compare inflection points to this idea of triggers, which you hear a lot about in eating disorder therapy, it's like, okay, what happened that triggered the binge? And a lot of what I teach is like if you look at triggers or patterns or things that typically precede a binge, the trigger is not the cause of the binge. The trigger may trigger an urge, but you always have a choice when you have the urge. And I think when we, take the word trigger out and put in inflection point, it really emphasizes that choice of like
yes.
whatever happened didn't whatever happens doesn't make binging inevitable,
Yeah,
right? It may
exactly.
bring up an urge, but then you have a choice. So yeah, it's seeing it
Always.
as a moment of opportunity instead of as something that makes binging inevitable.
Yes. So, so true. So, so true. Binging doesn't just happen. It's an active choice. It's an active choice. And when you take back your power and see, I chose to binge instead of getting groceries. I chose to binge instead of getting some takeout. I chose to binge instead of breathing when I was really stressed out and worried about my child. I made that choice and I can choose differently. Because when you own your choice and you see that you always have the power to make a different choice, then you can start course correcting.
Yeah, it's also seeing that having the urge is not your choice at this point, right? Because that's deeply conditioned in your brain right now. So something might happen out in the world in this moment that's an inflection point. You have the urge and really having deep compassion for yourself for having that urge. Like you always talk about accepting it, allowing it, realizing that yeah, it's not fun to feel driven toward food in those moments when you know you shouldn't be. So, yeah, having compassion for the fact that the urge is not your choice, but still seeing that you have a choice of what to do in that moment. And what you talked about in the beginning was like those moments you have a choice to be with the urge or be with the binge.
Exactly. Exactly. And as we always say, everything you want is on the other side of the urge, and everything you don't want is on the other side of the binge. I mean, that's the ultimate inflection point. It's the ultimate crossroads every time. Do I binge or do I allow this discomfort? Because that discomfort of allowing an urge always moves through you and you're so glad on the other side, always. But the discomfort of the binge, it doesn't go away. It gets worse and worse and worse over time, and you're never glad you did it.
And as we always say, all of that rests on you eating enough, right? So,
Hmm.
like, you can't just dismiss an urge if you're not eating and you're not having enough food during the day. So, that is also an inflection point, right? We talk about dismissing the urge as being one place, and also eating adequately is an inflection point. Like, you get to a point in your day and you know you need food, you know you need to nourish your body, and you have those restriction thoughts that say, oh, you shouldn't be eating, you need to lose weight. That's an inflection point too, is no, I need to nourish my body to support my recovery and just my overall well-being.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. We can't do any of this without adequate eating. It is top of the pile. It's the most important piece, right? Because again, then in those moments where urges arise, you know you're already well nourished. So you know there's enough food on board and that this is a moment to figure out what you truly need in that moment,
Yeah.
whatever it is. But absolutely, absolutely. Without the adequate eating, then it becomes next to impossible to manage urges. So we can't do one without the other. So, so true. And and of course, it's the same thing. It's like choosing restriction is choosing to binge. An urge to restrict is the same as an urge to binge because they're all part of that loop.
You may look at your inflection points for your desire to restrict and your inflection points for your desire to binge. So there may be certain things that happen that bring up that urge to binge, and there may be other things that happen that lead to the urge to restrict, right? If you're, let's say, scrolling on social media and you're doing compare and despair, and you have that
Mm,
urge to go on a diet, like those are inflection points too. So really look at what are your inflection points for binging, what are your inflection points for restricting.
yeah, I love that. I love that. Just to kind of like sum it all up, I think it's all about like noticing patterns, finding those discrete moments for you and noticing like where are places where I could make different choices so that you get it right next time, you figure it out next time because there's always a next time. There's always another meal, there's always another chance. We're always spiraling up, right? And having that self-compassion that you were talking about before. If you're having an urge to restrict or to binge, breathing with it. This is uncomfortable. I can be with this discomfort and I'm going to be so glad that I did, right? And like seeing it like this is a chance to change my brain. This is an opportunity for growth.
Yeah, and you don't have to wait for the inflection point to happen to do something. And I'm
Hmm.
going to kind of explain what I mean by this. It's something I talk a lot about in coaching. It's like once you identify the pattern, once you know when it tends to happen, you can do some things to prepare, right? You can set up your day to make sure that you're eating adequately before that. If you need to avoid something for a little while, that's okay too. Let's say it's always comes up when you're at a certain social event or with certain people, maybe you choose to take a little break from that, and that's okay. And then challenge yourself to gradually get back to that situation and challenge yourself to make the new choice at that inflection point. So it's like doing the preparation work leading up to the inflection point and even staying away from some of them for a little while if you feel you need that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, preparation is golden. Making decisions ahead of time is golden. I always talk about future self journaling, future self visualization, where you include the obstacle in that. So, looking at your day, looking at your week, where are there going to be moments of challenge? What can you do to support yourself through that? Are you going to be on a travel day where you need extra food? Are you going to be coming home from a trip where you need a house full of food? Are you going to be having a very intense work week where you might have stronger urges because you're feeling a little challenged, you might be feeling insecure, building that in, visualizing how am I going to work through those things? And of course, the other piece is reaching out for support, right? Like knowing you're not alone, other people are working with this, get coaching, join the group. Those kinds of places are places where you can get a lot of help figuring this out because it's not always so obvious to you when it's all in your head.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty of coaching is other people who are outside of your head can see and notice these patterns with you and help you make those new plans.
Yeah, absolutely. I listened to this lesson that you did in the group on inflection points, and I thought it was so powerful how everyone was sharing their own inflection point and sharing what they were going to do differently. And it's just yeah, like you said, a really powerful way to see that you're not alone and to support each other through the process.
Yeah. Yeah. Great.
Yeah, awesome. And if you are interested in joining the group, the link is in the show description. It's brainoverbinge.com/group. And Julie, is there anything else you want to share as we wrap up this conversation?
I think we've really covered it all. I just want to reinforce to everybody listening, like I hope that this gives you a lot of feelings of empowerment because I want everybody to take away like you get to choose, which is so powerful, right? Seeing these inflection points as opportunities for growth and opportunities to step into the power of your choices. So I just want to leave people with that.
Yeah, yeah, it is really such a powerful lesson on choice. And when you make the choice that leads you in the direction that you want to go, really celebrate yourself. And I know that you talk so much about that in the group and everyone
Yes.
celebrates each other. But yeah, I mean, that really helps support you being able to repeat that and continue going in the direction that you want to go.
Absolutely. Celebrate without condition, reinforcing all those changes you're making with yourself. Totally.
Awesome, Julie. Well, thank you for this really inspiring conversation.
Thank you, Kathryn.
Again, you can learn more about the group in the show description, as well as find links to all of the other Brain Over Binge resources, including my books and my online course, which is less than $20 per month. You can also learn about one-on-one coaching with me or Coach Julie. And as I mentioned in the last episode, we now have a laser coaching option. That's a 20-minute session, and it's a great option if you just want some quick and targeted guidance about a specific challenge that you're facing. Or you can book a full 45-minute session as well. And with both of these options, we have a variety of times available to fit your schedule, including at night and on weekends. We'd love to help you create a personalized plan to put binge eating behind you for good. I look forward to being with you in the next episode, and until then, I want to encourage you and remind you that you have the power to change your brain and live a binge-free life. The Brain Over Binge podcast is produced and recorded by Brain Over Binge Recovery Coaching, LLC. All work is copyrighted by Brain Over Binge Recovery Coaching, LLC, and all rights are reserved. As a disclaimer, the host of the Brain Over Binge podcast are not professional counselors or licensed healthcare providers, and this podcast is not a substitute for medical advice or any form of professional therapy. Eating disorders can have serious health consequences, and you are strongly advised to seek medical attention for matters relating to your health. Please get help when you need it, and good luck on your journey.